So, I don't tend to believe in the paranormal much. I tend to believe that there's a logical explanation for just about everything. This is due to the fact that I grew up in a very small Catholic village in Portugal where people believe in witchcraft, curses, ghosts, evil spirits. They highly exaggerate their encounters and flat out lie about meeting horrendous monsters in the night or flying women in the skies and stuff like that. I don't complain though, because I absolutely love horror stories and always encourage them to tell me about them, even though I don't believe it. Many of my close friends, too, have told me a couple of, I guess, believable ones, which makes me sometimes open-minded to it. Most of these stories, though, revolve around a very old house that belonged to a wealthy family back in the 50s. They were very involved with the country's politics and ended up fleeing to Brazil, leaving the house abandoned. The house is huge and still fully furnished. Lots of paintings, old desks and beds. We've even found old photos and letters in there. Unfortunately, kids have destroyed a lot of the stuff and painted the walls with dick drawings and bad words because, edgy kids, right? I've only ever been in it during the day and haven't ever seen anything unusual. But my friends swear that during the night, it's just a very different house. One night, though, we decided to go in. Some of my friends stayed outside, refusing to be a part of the adventure, so only 3 of us entered. With a flashlight on our phones, we climbed in through the broken window. Already the vibe is pretty different. It's weird too how something changes so much during the night. Everything just seems so sinister. The window we entered through, though, takes us to the 2nd floor. We go up to the 3rd floor, then 4th, and all the way down to the 1st floor. And this is where it begins to get really weird. Like I said, we grew up in a place where witches are real. A lot of older ladies consider themselves to be real witches. They practice a lot of witchcraft, mostly in parks. They'll leave candy and teddies just lying on a blanket with some random pages with spells, or sometimes it'll be with a glass of red wine. This is to apparently lure in kids or teens, and if they take it, they're now cursed. A lot of crap like this happens, and we've all seen it at least once around the village. I don't believe it works or anything, but it is scary to think that some people just wish harm on others like that. But anyway, it's on the 1st floor that we find a blanket. It's full of candles, a book of dark magic and the occult with some of the pages spread around. But the disgusting part was that right in the middle was a hat, and inside the hat were hair cuttings and teeth. There is also just a really horrible smell, and after investigating, we discovered that it came from a cat's head that was placed behind the hat. It was at this point that I just want to leave, because whoever left this is obviously an evil bitch and I do not want to run into her. All 3 of us are obviously scared. This all seemed like a bit too much. My friend picked up one of the pages on the floor though, curious as to what was written on it. And she started shaking quite violently, and when I touched her back, she just collapsed on the floor and started to convulse. We were terrified, and my friend told me to run outside and call for help. I did, and I've never run so fast in my life. As I ran back up the stairs to the 2nd floor, though, I heard as clear as day somebody running right behind me. I assumed it was my friend following. As I climbed out the window, my face towards the corridor that I just ran in from, I expected to see my friend following after me, but instead, I saw a woman peeking her head from behind the wall. I looked straight at her, and she said really loudly, "You shouldn't be in other people's homes, or we might start going into yours." And at that, I lost it. I screamed so loud that my other friends, they came to me. The boys went back in for my other 2 friends, and we immediately called an ambulance. The police also showed up because we were technically trespassing private property. We didn't get into much trouble, just a bit of a warning and a phone call to our parents. We explained everything, and I said that I'd seen a lady inside the house, but they said that they'd found nobody. My friend that had collapsed had to have a series of exams done to her, but in the end they found nothing wrong, and she's not had any other attacks since then. This is the only true paranormal situation that's ever happened to me, and I was 17 and I'm now 23. It still really freaks me out to this day as well, and I've had some nightmares since then. I never went back to that house, and last year it was actually demolished. They're using the land to make parking spaces or something. And believe me, I have looked for logical answers to what happened that night, and I haven't found any. So this happened just last week, and some events leading up to it came from my housemates' accounts of what they saw, heard, or felt. It started with housemate T, who was the first person to report something. Out of all the people in the house, too, I'm the only one who really believes or gives much merit to the supernatural. But recently, something happened that spooked my other two housemates pretty badly. So one night, while T was in bed, I don't know what time it was as he didn't mention it, he swore that he saw the lamp on his dresser move. He even went as far as to tell my other roommate Kay, about this. Kay brushes it off and says that it's probably nothing. He just imagined it in the dark or something. Admittedly, it's not much, but I feel like it was the first step in what was about to come. A few nights later, I'm asleep with my dog, and suddenly I just wake up. My dog isn't reacting, and I honestly wasn't sure that she was awake at that moment, but I opened my eyes and glanced down my bed. And about 2.5, maybe 3 feet away from me, there was this dark shape. It didn't look human, though, like a shadow person. It looked very inhuman. It was a shadow, but it seemed like it was craggy and very black. I only saw it for about 2 seconds before my bedroom door just burst open. I literally yelled, "What the hell?" only to see my housemate Kay standing at my door, asking if I was okay. I told her, yeah, I was asleep. I didn't even think to mention what I had just seen. But she told me that she heard what sounded like somebody retching or throwing up from her room. She didn't just hear it once either. Kay said that the first time that she heard it, it woke her up, and she wasn't entirely sure that she actually did hear it. Kay decided, since she'd woke up to use the bathroom, and apparently while she was in there, she heard the noise again, clear as anything, which is why she came to check on me. She thought that maybe I was really sick or something, but I told her that I was fine, it wasn't me, and I knew it wasn't my dog because I've heard her get sick in the middle of the night, and I always wake up when it happens. It's a very distinct noise. And at this point, my dog is definitely awake, but not acting strange or anything. She never does when stuff like this happens, though. So in the end, Kay accepts what I say and goes back to bed. And as I'm laying on my bed in the dark, I just have this really unsettled feeling. But I managed to get back to sleep, and I don't think too much of it the rest of the day. About a day or two later, though, I'm in the kitchen getting myself a drink or something, and Kay and I are alone in the house, when all of a sudden, Kay calls me from the other side of the house, and I go over to see what she needs. I get to her room, and she tells me that she feels like she needs me to see this, otherwise I wouldn't believe her. I give her a quizzical look and follow her into her room, and a porcelain doll that I'd gifted her about 3 years ago had fallen about 3 feet away from its place on top of a curio that Kay has in her room with her other 4 or so porcelain dolls, all of which haven't moved an inch. She gives me this wide-eyed look and says that she was in the shower and nowhere near the doll. She didn't even hear it fall, but when she came out, her shower is connected to her bedroom. The doll was on the floor. Nothing had bumped it too, and the doll hadn't recently moved or anything, and because it just sits there in that position where its legs are folded under it, the doll itself should be pretty stable. She was obviously pretty spooked, and I took the opportunity to explain what I thought that I saw the other night before she came into my room. It felt unsafe to be talking about it though in the house, and Kay insisted that we just leave for a little while and just get out. Once we were in the car and driving away, it felt okay to talk about it, and I mentioned to Kay that feeling of hesitance that I had at saying anything about it in the house, and Kay said that she felt the same, scared to talk about it while we were in there. We got home after about, I think it was about 2 hours of staying out and away. We saged the whole place together, and since then nothing else has really happened. I don't know why, but it just seems like we just randomly get these paranormal encounters every few months, especially if I haven't saged in a while. Mind you, the house isn't built on a site where anyone died, and the house isn't itself super old, and none of us are actively into the occult or anything, so I'm not entirely sure why this stuff even happened. thing that spooks me the most, though, is that whatever was in the house seemed genuinely frightening, and it definitely spooked my very non-believer housemates into feeling like something unexplainable was happening. But most of the time, the crap that I experience isn't super scary or disturbing, just kind of mildly weird, and at least on one occasion an entity that visited was just cute and mischievous, I suppose. I'm not sure what's in that house though, and I wonder if anyone else has experienced seeing something like what I saw that night. If you guys have any answers, I would really appreciate hearing your theories and experiences. Thanks. So, I'm currently in the hospital with my grandma. She isn't doing so well, so I decided that I'd stay the night in case things took a turn for the worse. I went outside to smoke a cancer stick and just to get some fresh air, and I had to walk the mandatory 300 feet or so from the entrance, so I was decently far from the front entrance, off into a small gravel parking lot that was well lit for once. So, no cliche, the area was dimly lit. And smoked some good old cancer until I just hear a soft, "Hey," come from behind what was one of those dumpsters that are in one of their own enclosures with a locking gate. Being used to people saying weird things at this hour, 3 a.m., I just said, "Sup," while not looking in the direction of the sound, and then I hear the same, "Hey," again, but in the exact same tone, and I assume that it's just some dude having a laugh at my expense, so I just ignore it while I puff away, but again, this thing just said, "Hey," and again to me. Much to my annoyance, I turned around and I said, "Listen, buddy," and before I could continue, I saw a scraggly-looking coyote just staring at me, and then it just scampered off once I made eye contact. I was taken back, but since I thought it was just some animal that happened to pass by, I went to investigate this mystery man since I felt safe to do so, with the hospital being within shouting distance. But the thing that made me share this here is that even to get anywhere in this parking lot, you have to cross really crunchy and loud gravel, and all I saw was that dog thing scampering away, and there was nobody around. So this is a bit different than a lot of the others, as A, this is currently ongoing, and B, I'm not entirely certain. It could be nothing, but it really could be something too. I'm not too sure. Anyway, I've recently moved into an apartment in the historic part of a medium-ish sized town. The atmosphere is great, everyone seems friendly, and I get to walk twice a day for about an hour. Even the dogs, which feel like they have to bark at me, are pretty friendly, I suppose. The only fly in the ointment, though, is this guy who lives a little ways down from me, who may be a bit too friendly. So not long after I moved in, I started doing my walks and would notice this older man sitting out on the porch some evenings. I'd nod at him, he'd nod at me, or we might exchange greetings. You know, just normal neighbour stuff. A few weeks into this routine, I'm walking back to my apartment and passing his house. He's out there again as usual, but this time he calls out to me, stating how he always sees me walking. I respond that, yeah, I do it twice a day, and he invites me to come up and sit on his porch and just talk. Now, my mum might have raised me to be polite, but she didn't raise a fool either, so I politely declined and continued the short conversation from the grass in the front of his house. After a few minutes, I excused myself and I walked back to my apartment. The next few days went on as routine until one evening he's sitting on his porch, listening to somebody play electric guitar on his radio. I mean some really psychedelic stuff too, and he calls out to me. I stop and he asks if I like the music. I said yes. In truth, it wasn't really my thing, but again, I just wanted to be polite. And so he invites me to come and sit up on his porch and listen to it. I again declined, stating that I had somewhere to be, and he grouses jokingly that I need to stop making excuses. I again take my leave, though, feeling a little bit more unnerved than the previous. Several more weeks pass, though, and I'm walking by his house when he suddenly bellows, "Boy," at me from his porch. I stop and turn to face him. I have a thing about people being too familiar with me. I hate being called Bud and Buddy, so automatically I'm on edge. He asks why he hasn't seen me in the last few days. And I explain that I've been walking at the same time every evening, and again he invites me to come up and sit on his porch, and again I decline. After several days of walking, I'm out one morning a couple of days ago, doing my normal rounds, when I pass this guy in sunglasses and a hat mowing his lawn. I squeeze past him, and the guy turns and demands to know why I didn't even stop to say hi. Surprise, surprise, it's my buddy. I state rightly that I didn't recognize him, and he suddenly just changes the subject, asking what I do. I tell him that I'm a writer. It's really more of a passion, though, than just a simple job, but it was the best answer that I had at the time. He says that he's wrote before, but probably never something as creative as I've done, which is mildly creepy considering that I never told him that I wrote fiction. He then says that he wants to read some of my writing, and says to bring it up to his porch one day, before helpfully tacking on that if he's not there, I should just knock because he's probably in the basement, where apparently his office is. Pretty creeped out by the fact that this dude is ticking all the red flags. I just continue on my walk. Several hours later, though, in the evening, I'm walking by his house when I see him come out with his back to me. He hadn't seen me yet and fiddle with something on his porch. I slow down because I'm curious, and because somewhere in my brain I guess I decided that it would be rude to not say hi, and he turns around after setting up the speaker again, telling me to come and sit down and listen to the music. Now, I was meeting some friends a few minutes later, and thus I declined, citing the fact that they were waiting on me. He immediately, half-jokingly, accuses me of lying and says that I won't get anywhere in life by not telling the truth, before then inviting that I hadn't had anything to do all day. I argue that, yes, actually, I did, and he finally drops the subject and lets me go. I'm walking away from him, and that was when I heard it. His screen door swinging shut. This meant that the man had got out on his porch and set up the music, just to try to get me to come up there with him. That was the last time that I went that way after that, the next morning changing my pattern entirely to just avoid his house. And this is where I need the advice portion of the evening comes in. In your people's humble opinions, do you think I'm just blowing this out of proportion? Is this just some lonely retired old man reaching out to the one person that he sees on a regular basis? Or is this somebody with a much darker agenda trying to get me into a position where I'm easier to stab or incapacitate and be dragged back into his house or something? What do you guys think? G'day mates, it's Busta here. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you would like to help me out, then please go ahead and watch another video by clicking on a card on the screen. As always guys, thanks for all the love and support, and I'll see you mates in the next one.